are exciting, and this community, I'm not sure if you know, but just about a month ago, the Kauffman Foundation recognized Los Angeles as the most entrepreneurial city in the nation. It surprised me, actually, to see that. I would have thought San Francisco, but the Kauffman Foundation, that was based on more people per capita are founding businesses in Los Angeles than any other city in the United States. This is a vibrant community. Some really special things are happening, and it's a very special time to be opening up a business. Myself, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Howard Leonhardt, and I'm a co-leader along with Carrie and Jessica for Startup LA, and a co-chair for the Startup California initiative, which is a unit of Startup America Partnership. And one of the ways that I got involved was that back when I was 26 years old, I went to go raise capital for the first time, and our business plan called to raise $1 million, and our plan was to develop a cardiovascular balloon catheter for treating heart disease. I went to a lawyer, like all of us have to do when you're going to raise capital, and that lawyer told me that I could only offer my stock to people that had more than $1 million in assets, excluding their home. And I said, okay, well, maybe I can advertise to reach those folks. And he said, oh, no, wait a minute. You're not allowed to advertise. You have to have a substantial pre-existing relationship already with the people that have more than $1 million in assets. I grew up in Minneapolis, and my father was a hard-working printing press mechanic. My mother was a seamstress. I didn't know a single person at age 26 that had more than $1 million in assets, excluding their home. The lawyer went on to tell me that there was an exception to that you could offer to only 35 non-accredited investors your stock. You also had to have a substantial pre-existing relationship with those folks. But he said, if you're going to do that, I have to double my legal fees, because the risk of litigation when you offer shares to non-accredited investors is substantially higher than when you offer to accredited investors. And oh, by the way, your accounting costs are probably going to be double because of the filing requirements necessary in blue sky filings with the state to sell to non-accredited investors are substantially more expensive. On top of that, the 35 people that I knew, I'd be lucky to get $1,000 each from them, which I did. Our business plan called for $1 million to launch our company. I ended up with $35,000. I was $965,000 short of our goal. So what we had to do is earn the money, and it took us about 10 years to earn the money, and finally we launched our balloon catheter line that sequenced to development of a stent graft, and we went from 35 employees to over 4,000 employees, and we merged with a company here in California, and then sold shortly after that for $4.3 billion to a company called Medtronic. But the 10 years that it took to do that was too long, too difficult. And then we spun out from that company a new company called Leonhardt, and we utilized adult muscle stem cells to treat heart failure. And then I had a new experience in capital raising. We took our company and we did an IPO in 2008. We were the only IPO in the entire United States in 2008. We set out to raise $7 million to finish our clinical trials. Those who know about IPOs, we were like on a 30-city tour. The bills were running up. It was taking longer. It was a very difficult year. We later learned why every other company dropped out of doing an IPO in the United States in that year, which in and itself is a problem. At the end of the process, we ended up raising $6.5 million. I asked every friend, I asked every neighbor to join in investing in a company because I believed in the technology, and the technology does work. Stem cells do help people with heart failure to recover. At the end of the process, I asked our accountant controller, Angel Rodriguez, to bring me a tabulation of what it cost us to raise that $6.5 million. He brought a sheet in my office. I looked down the list, and at the bottom of that list was the number $4.8 million. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it. And the money that my friends and family and everybody that I brought into the company was supposed to go towards completing clinical trials, to creating jobs, and instead it went to lawyers and accountants and regulators and insurance companies related to the initial public offering. My first reaction was to go to Congress and just start punching people. I was upset because we didn't have the money then to do the clinical trials because it went to those purposes. And those people that took that money, they said that they were taking that money in the name of protecting the investor. And I totally believed that it was just the opposite. So after I settled down and decided, going to Congress and start punching people probably wouldn't be the right course of action, I couldn't sit still and just take it. So I formed the California Stock Exchange, and we began the effort of trying to gather other people who believed in reforming the capital process. Along the way, we ran into Jason Best, who we're going to ask to come up here in a few moments, who is credited as being one of the originators of the Crowdfunding Act. We put together a set of reforms, and the first people that we went to, we said that we wanted to eliminate the cost and complexity of raising capital, and particularly we wanted to take away this idea that you had to have a substantial existing relationship with people over $1 million in assets. By the way, along the way, I happened to become one of those people that had more than $1 million in assets. And when the first thing you do when you go in to meet your financial advisor, he says, whatever you do, don't invest in startups because you made your money, you don't want to lose it. So only 1% of the US population has that level of assets, and less than half of that population defies the advice of their financial advisors and decides to invest in startup businesses. Luckily, they do. When we first brought this idea forward, particularly lawyers and people involved with the capital raising process, they said, no way in a million years is the idea of taking away the 1934 regulations going to happen. No way are they going to allow you to advertise. No way are they going to allow you to sell to non-accredited investors. No way are they going to take away the limitation of 35. Well, April 5th, 2012, along with Jason and David and a few other people in this room, we were right there in the Rose Garden, standing next to the President of the United States, after Congress passed the law 521-1 for the Small Capital Formation Act, 407-17 for the Crowdfunding Act. Every Republican, every Democrat in the state of California voted yes. And to the people that were skeptics, it was pretty neat to send that email of standing next to the President as he signed the bill into law and to tell him, hey, this change was necessary, it was needed. The thing that hasn't happened is I don't think that people have realized the enormous implications that this has. In my opinion, it's going to change everything. We're about to enter in to the greatest period of growth and creativity that has ever happened on planet Earth. We all experienced the end of the 1990s where an interest in funding tech companies and a few other things pulling together created what is today the greatest economic period. I believe we're heading towards a period that's 10 to 100 times greater than that, because now we're going to unleash the power of the human spirit. We're going to provide people like myself, when I was 26 years old and couldn't get funding, the chance to try new ideas. Along with a company called Emerging Trends in San Diego, we've commissioned a 500-person survey on crowdfunding, and you're amongst the first people to hear the results. 74% of the people making more than $75,000 a year are going to participate in crowdfunding at a level of $2,300 per year. 58% of the people making $50,000 to $75,000 are going to participate at a level averaging $1,300 a year. And 48% of those making under $50,000 have pledged that they're going to invest at least $400. This might sound like small amounts, but when you add it up across the board, we're about to see more than $3 trillion of new capital brought into funding upstart companies that wasn't there before. Where we're at now is that last year, the number of angel investors in the United States, the accredited people making more than $1 million or having more than $1 million in assets excluding their home, declined. Unfortunately, we're in a recession, declined by 12% last year to 125,000 people in the United States. Of those 125,000, less than half are expecting to make any new investments in startups. So this new law that opens up small investments from a lot of people couldn't be more timely, because the other direction was diminishing for startups and anyone trying to finance a company to get the money. This is a special thing. Politicians and nonprofits have had this advantage of crowdfunding for some time. Speaking of our president, he's raised over $100 million for this campaign and under $200 donations. So the power of small investments is magnificent, and we're about to see that unleashed for the first time ever in the history of the world in investing in new and growing and startup businesses.